Hello and welcome to the course of data science. In this lecture, which is actually unit 1.8, we will talk about issues of ethics, bias and privacy in data science. And remember, as a data scientist, you need to have a very careful understanding about these things. This is a very major issue that we are facing in the current period. So, as an individual, as a data scientist, as an organization employee, you need to have a very careful understanding about these concepts, because due to privacy or ethics or bias, your model, your working, your data science task will not be appropriate. You might not achieve what is expected to be achieved. So let's start with it. So first of all, I would like to talk about bias, and this is a very important issue. For example, if you have collected data, and even if you have collected data for a large amount of persons, and you are building model on that particular data, assume that this data of person belongs to job hiring. Okay, so you have collected data related to person, and you are using this data for hiring purpose. I mean, giving jobs to employee. So whenever someone apply, your data science model will tell you whether you have to call him or her for an interview or not. So at the first level of filter, you will be using your data model. You will be using your data science model to actually decide whether you need to call him or her or not. So after 1 year of basically calling all the candidates for different position in your organization, someone realized that why even not a 1% of interviewee was actually female. Why all of them were male only? You might be thinking that might be the reason that the CVs which you have received was basically more belongs to male candidate, or the male candidate might have basically strong CV. But when you go into the detail and when you have investigated it, then you found that the problem is not with the skill set, but the problem was with the data set. You might have only gathered data for male candidate only, for the male persons only. So the model you have built, which only rely or which is only based on male data, how come they will be referring or recommending to female candidate? So this is just one of the example. Or maybe like black versus white issue, might be the model you have developed for maybe a job, or maybe some other kind of privileges. You have built a model for such privileges based on a data set, of course, but the data is primarily contains only white people data. So whenever your model recommend something, it highly biased towards white people, and maybe in some cases the black people might be more intelligent, or maybe might be fulfilling your requirement more appropriately or more strongly than white people. But because you have not used an appropriate data set for building such type of model, and due to which your model is only recommending either white people or male or something like that. So this is bias case. That is why if you are building your model, if you are working in the data science domain, you have to be very careful about it. And remember this, because of this, okay, because of this, many problems are arising, because we are adding AI and data science and everything like that in many of the domain, but because of inappropriateness of data, we are not building a true data model or a true data science model, and due to which we are actually doing, or due to which our model are actually doing biasness. But this biasness is not because of you, but this biasness is because of the data set. There is one more reason, that the data is actually available belongs to only one type. Maybe if, for example, the data which you have used for building the selection model for the HR hiring process, for example, are based on only male data, and the reason for only using male data is due to the availability of data. Might be the case that previously only very less number of females were doing job, and that is why you have just very small percentage of female data and very large number of male data. But now more females want to join jobs. Maybe just an hypothetical example. But the data which you have used to build a model are highly based on male data, and that is why it is biased towards males rather than female. And that might not be the reason that you are doing biasness, but due to one or other scenario or circumstances, your model become biased. Okay, so this is an example of bias. So as a data scientist, you need to be very careful about it. Okay. Then basically the case of ethics, if you talk about ethics, so you have to see that what is ethically allowed and what is ethically not allowed. Even if something is available, you were like, it is available publicly, there is no licensing involved, but do you fulfilling the requirement of the ethics? Because everything, even if available freely, does not mean that it is actually fulfilling the criteria of ethics. So remember this. As a data scientist, you must need to work under ethics. You should not violate what ethics tell you. Okay. So this is the another thing. So you should be very careful about ethics. It's not about basically what data or what model or what other people are doing, but whatever you are doing, it really fulfill the basic requirement of ethics or not. If you are not if it is not fulfilling the basic requirement of ethics, then you should not use such type of things. Because again, I want to emphasize on that sometime if you are using some data set or something like that, and there is no licensing or it is publicly available, does not means it is ethically allowed to use such data. Maybe someone personal data is hacked by some hacker or someone else, okay, and published on the internet. And somehow for building your own model, you will be using that particular data set, and you will be like, it is publicly available. It is publicly available on many forums. I am not basically hacking or something like doing this, but it is publicly available and I am using from there. It is publicly available and it might be available for rest of the life. But you have to see that whether it fulfills the requirement of the basic ethics or not. If it's not fulfilling, don't use such type of data. Okay, so this is something about ethics. Then another point, which is about privacy, which is very important. Okay, so let's take an example of Facebook. Whatever you are doing in your life is actually you are posting on your Facebook. Okay? Even some of the people are even drinking water, then they first post on the Facebook that they are going to drink a glass of water, and then they will actually go for actual drinking, right? So something like that. So you are posting pictures, images, very personal images and everything like that on the Facebook, and you will be applying some sort of privacy, that it will be only visible to some specialized group or specialized people or a particular person. Okay, and you will be like, okay, fine, I have basically applied my privacy. Okay, but again, what about the organization? Do they really care about your privacy? Maybe they are not publishing your data to anyone else, maybe, but maybe they are using your data, your private data, for their own advantage, for building their own data science model. So is it allowed? No and yes. So what is the meaning of no and yes? Initially, no, definitely you have applied privacy, that you don't know, you are not interested in sharing with anyone else other than very specialized people or a particular people, or for your own record. But have you gone through their own guideline and policies? Have you read this? Maybe the policy states that they will not publish to anyone else, but they can use your data for their own purpose. That's the problem. So privacy is a very issue. And remember, there are many cases that I think I have basically mentioned in the initial unit of this week, that about Cambridge Analytica company. Okay, so that is why maybe they are selling your data to another organization, and you might not be able to identify that your data is actually used by someone else, because they are not publishing your data, but they are selling your data to some other organization, and that organization is not publishing your data again. They are using your data to build their own data science models for their own prediction, forecasting, or anything like that, for improvement of their own models, for improvement of the accuracy of their own models. But is it allowed? No, because the data keeper, or you can say the organization which is actually keeping your data, must keep your data confidential. They should keep your privacy. Okay, that is why basically this is the major concern, that that the data scientists must focus on ethics, bias, and privacy. They cannot build model on such data which have basically a specific set of privacy. If someone allowed it, then definitely the data scientist can use it. But however, if it is not allowed, it should not be used for any purpose. Like I've already mentioned about Cambridge Analytica and the election campaign in USA or something like that. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, so as a data scientist, you should be very careful about ethics, bias, and privacy while working for data science problem, and ensure that you are not violating any of these steps. Okay, and that will of course help you in successfully achieving your objective, and that is why uh, this is very important as a professional data scientist, that you must be very careful about these things. Okay, otherwise that might create problem for you as well, and for your organization as well. Okay, so last but not the least, which is not directly relevant to data science stars, but in general, for example, Google is actually gathering all your data, your location data. If you are using Google Map, it is actually collecting your data. You are searching, it is actually collecting your data. You are using Gmail, they are actually collecting your data. So there is no free lunch. There is a statement which is very popular. Normally we used, I prefer to use in the domain of optimization, that the no free lunch theorem, or you can just say the term no free lunch. So there's nothing free. If you are using software, operating system, everything free of cost, then you are paying in some other way. You are be like, yeah, you are keeping gigabytes and even maybe hundred and thousand of gigabytes of space on Facebook to upload your huge amount of high resolution images on their server. So what benefit they are getting? They are benefit your data, and they are using your data somehow for one or other purpose, maybe target ads, maybe. Okay, so based on basically your activities, your interaction, they are actually using this data to basically show targeted ads on your profile. Similarly, Google is using for targeted ad, or something like that. So remember this, all these big organizations are using your data, okay, to at least build their own data science model. I'm not saying these all organizations are actually selling your data to third party, but yes, this is also true that some of the organization previously, and maybe right now as well, but previously, because of the different cases published on different newspaper, that they had somehow sold data of their customers or maybe their users to some other organization to earn money, right? But however, if they are not selling data to some other organization, but at least they are using your data for your own objective, for their own purpose, or for their own organization benefits, right? So like I told you that maybe one of the very common uses of this data is to build sophisticated models to present targeted ads in front of you, while you are actually using that particular software, like maybe Gmail, or maybe Google search, or maybe Facebook, or something like that. So they put targeted ads based on your data. So there are two things. One is basically they are using your data for their own purpose. The other, which is definitely they have basically stated in their own privacy statements, or their own basically guidelines, and you have agreed on it at the time of creating your account. Okay, this is one thing. But the more dangerous thing is actually, or the actual dangerous thing is basically when they are selling your data to some third party, and that third party is actually free to use data in any sense. Okay, so that will create problems. So as a professional data scientist, we must be very careful about these things, and like ethics, bias, and privacy. With this thing, our lecture of our week 1 lecture is concluded, and in the next week we will start with a new chapter, and until then, thank you very much.